Bases dropped on a new round of soccer down here. It's Tuesday Thoughts, and we're going to have Tuesday Thoughts from a very faraway place coming up in just a little bit. This is going to be a treat for the Women's World Cup for the group stage, and we'll let you know about that coming up in just a second. And by the way, did you know Lionel Messi's in practice? There, figured we'd go ahead and get that out of our system. All right, we're in a no dilly, no dally zone. It is, all right, so this is Luke Winstel, for those of you who are watching on Twitch. And Luke is, he is no stranger to those of us here at SDH because Luke has had to put up with us in Mercer activities. So he's worked with Jess. I think you've worked with Jess, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've worked with Jessica Charman, you worked with Jason, and you worked with me doing Mercer. And you are doing something very, very cool. And it is because you are right now where?
I'm in Brisbane, Australia, over here at the Alpha Mosaic Hotel.
Which means that Luke will be covering the Women's World Cup, and we'll get into the why in just a little bit. But more importantly, Luke is going to be one of our moles for the World Cup. He's going to be covering the Matildas. He's going to be covering that group. And the reason you are covering that group, sir, is why?
Well, I had an opportunity through the University of Georgia Sports Media Program. Big shout out to Professor Vicky Michaelis and Carlo Finlay. And basically, about October area, they said, hey, you can try out. We're going to have this international opportunity. And we went to Georgia Gwinnett College, did some write-ups. I saw Jessica there. She was calling those games and writing game stories. And then they had a blind competition and picked 12 writers to come over. We've got a few in Sydney, a few in Melbourne, and then my group over here in Brisbane I'm part of a group here in Brisbane that, I've been really excited about.
And for those who are watching on the Twitch pitch, you are already getting invites from our listeners. One of our listeners / watchers, Bam, he's a big LAFC guy. He runs the LAFC podcast down there in Australia. Wants to know if you're coming to Melbourne, and he wants to know when, because it sounds like he's rolling out the red carpet for you already. A lot of folks are totally stoked about you being down there, and they want you to come visit.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate that. And we were in Sydney for a few days, kind of getting acclimated and getting to enjoy a bit of Australia before we traveled to our respective cities. So I'll be in Brisbane throughout the group stage, and then I'll be headed back because it'll be time to start school. But we have a team in Melbourne, and my friend Cassidy and some of the other UGA sports media students are holding it down there, and they're fantastic, some of the best.
Okay, so for Bam, just so you know, Bam, Luke is at Luke Winstel, Winstel on Twitter. And so if you want to pair up with Luke and, maybe get to pair up with his Melbourne group as well, and maybe help them out as well. So we'll try to facilitate some conversations here when it comes to the folks from the University of Georgia and being down there in Australia. You've been down there for what, about a week?
I would say about a week. We flew down starting on the 10th, and then of course with the whole international dateline, we landed at 6 a.m. on the 12th. So ever since then, a few days in Sydney, flew about 90 minutes, not very far, over to Brisbane, and ever since we hit the ground, Australia canceled their press conference on Sunday, so I got to go meet some koalas and kangaroos, and then we got straight to press conferences Monday, got some stories going, and things cooking. Just had one published a couple of hours ago, and hopefully one coming about this time tomorrow.
All right, so where can folks look at this material that you're posting?
Yeah, so our internship, for us, we've got like UGA students all the way through rising sophomores to seniors, and for me, we're getting published on the Associated Press, so it's through AP, and then of course it's syndicated. So story I ran today was AP published and then picked up by ABC News, Washington Post, talking about Kathy Freeman and her impact on the Matildas, and she also came back and took a visit and came to see the players and talk to them about dealing with pressure in your home country. And they're playing the Matildas. Their opening game is in the same stadium where she won her gold medal and where she had the Olympic opening ceremonies with the torch. So a lot of significance, especially in this area of the world.
All right, so Luke Winstel is going to be our Matildas / group correspondent while the group stage is going on down there. We bring in Jarrett Smith. So, Jarrett, technology has actually worked. Luke is in Brisbane talking to us this morning, where it is our time, 11:10 at night down there in Brisbane, and he's hanging out with us here this morning.
Oh, look, the fact that technology is working is its own minor miracle. As the prep, John is joining me in this as the rabbit ears have been pointed in the right direction to do this. John, we're using rabbit ears, right?
Yes. So, Luke, what has study hall been like for you getting ready for this?
Oh, well, really one of the best things that we've had is at the University of Georgia. A lot of our teachers have kind of been there, done that, and a lot of these types of things, like Professor Michaelis, who's been mentoring me for the past year, and I've been in her sports classes in the sports media program. She's covered Olympics for, over a dozen years, about as long as, I've been alive when you look at her professional experience. So looking at things as simple of, I've never been out of the country before. So how do you travel? How do you do the whole manage wanting to see all the cool things in a city, but also working? And then looking at the types of things of starting in October, we were told, hey, there's going to be a class that you take. We signed up in December, got into it in January, and we were prepping multiple times a week and even playing some soccer matches against each other to try to build some team bonding and get to know each other before we'd be travel partners, and doing the kinds of things of, basic team capsules, research. How many World Cups has the team you're covering been to? Making sure that you can break down a roster and who's in your starting 11, and what is the European Women's Super League and those clubs? What does that look like relative to your team? So looking at things like Team Australia, the Matildas, 3 players at Man City, and being able to follow them and watch some different games throughout that process, but also getting down to it where once the previews start coming out, we're trying to talk to people like Annie Peterson with the Associated Press, who's done such a great job over the years with this coverage. And the teachers at the University of Georgia have helped us find the right people and the right resources to get everything together. So the prep has been a lot, especially through June and into July, but it's all worth it when you get to look around, and we're not even in stadiums yet, but in press conferences, at practices, and say, wow, I feel so lucky to be around people that are at the top of their game in the media world, but also in the football world or soccer world.
Luke Winstel hanging out with us. Jared Smith, go for it.
We actually have a question from Bam, who's one of our one of our regulars, who's actually hit Australia most of the time. I think he's going to be making the jump around for this tournament. He did want to ask you how it was losing a day in travel.
It was weird, and it was not something that I feel like you can prepare for if you've never done it before. So what I tried to do, I've heard of teams that I've covered, like back in America, that will get their sleep schedule going before they travel, even if they don't travel early. So I was doing the whole like staying up till 4 a.m. and sometimes I'd be doing it prepping, and I'd rationalize like staying up late because sometimes I really enjoy that personally. So I'd be staying up until 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5 a.m., 6 a.m. And then eventually, once I'd completely just ruined my sleep schedule the week before, when I got to Australia, my energy levels have been high consistently the whole time. So I don't know, what I did, or if it's just the fact that this is so new and so fun and, such a stimulating experience. But I feel like I didn't really miss a beat. But the first day, I will admit, I'm not a coffee drinker, but I had this thing called a Rocket Fuel at Joe Black Coffee in Sydney, and it's like a bunch of shots of espresso inside of a Coca-Cola. So I think I had a little help too.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a little help, but that was just one time. Everything else has been natural.
Luke is going to be our correspondent. And so, Luke, for the tournament, I will set the ground rules this way. You have golden ticket status for the tournament. So since you're 14 hours ahead and you've got a great idea as what I'm going to have for dinner and if I'm going to get into a traffic accident.
Not today.
Okay, thank you. I need that. Let me know. And like I said, this is going to be the ground rules for this entire tournament when you're down there. Let me know when you want to hop on, and you can come on, obviously, off the top at 9:05. We'll talk about things and all that kind of stuff. So that's the ground rules. All you have to do is text me, and I hope that your international rates are covering unlimited texting and that you don't have to charge you get charged like $225 when you get home for your phone and everything. So you have golden ticket status. Just let me know when you want to pop in at 9:05, and you can talk about what's going on. When you look at your group and you look at the Matildas, what have been the expectations of the fans down there? What's the vibe been like? I know obviously they're getting massively excited about what's going on in their home country, but when you look at the Matildas, what do you see?
What I'm seeing right now is a team that understood that they're hosting the World Cup and that they needed to make changes to try to impress these home fans. So they did the Matildas, Football Australia, did a internal study about 3-4 years ago and found that of the major teams, they were one of the worst, one of the last place teams in terms of depth. They had some star players, a lot of people that follow women's soccer, women's Super League. They know Sam Kerr. They know a player like Claire Polkinghorne. There's been star power on this team now, for well over a decade, and that's not the issue, but the depth. And you'll see, especially if you look at the documentary that Disney Plus made about this team and this program, they talked about Matildas, the world at our feet, of winning a player. They had some star players that they would rest for certain games and try to keep them from getting burnt out. And because of that, and because of the management and the dedication to building depth, they've had some players that have come up through the system and through the A-League that have been able to contribute. So you've got Charlie Grant. She's been a little under the weather lately with some jet lag, but sounds like she'll be good to go for the opener if they call upon her. And Courtney Vine is one that you might see in the starting lineup and the starting group that I've been very impressed with. And she's got this goal of being the fastest player and having the most pace of anybody on the field. And she's come, in terms of an international scene, out of nowhere in the past cycle. So seeing players come up like that, along with the ones that have been highly touted, Ellie Carpenter's back off the ACL injury. Mary Fowler just scored. She's back off the back injury. So it's a lot of hope for this Matildas group combined with the stars. And Caitlin Ford has found incredible form throughout the club season and continued that here. So there's no reason that the Matildas should not advance past the group stage. They've got the talent. They've built the depth. And a coach in Tony Gustafsson, Swedish, but won the World Cup as an assistant with Team USA in 2015 and 2019. He's somebody that, Team USA fans have gotten to know fairly well over the past decade. And he's the head man for Team Australia. He's understood what they need to do. He's making the right moves, it seems, to build the culture. So the hope's there. The sellouts are there. The team has become a spectacle and something that especially a lot of people involved with youth soccer in the nation of Australia have really become interested in. And that's one of the stories actually that I'm working on, is the correlations that you see there between national team, youth soccer. So you look at that group, it's also the group of death. You've got Brazil, and everyone knows Marta and some of those star players, and Canada with Christine Sinclair. And they're a team that historically has done well. We've seen what they've done at the Olympics. And Nigeria, one that has some turmoil right now. One of my colleagues, Brooke Evans, a student over here at the UGA Sports Media Program, is about to have a story that goes out about what's happening with the Nigerian team and the coach and the federation and the players and who's standing by who. So to me, it's looking at that team. Are they talented enough that in spite of the turmoil, they can overcome that, or will it be too much? So in the group of death, there will be a lot of tests, but for Team Australia, the Matildas, they look like the type of team that is ready to advance at home.
Jared Smith, go for it.
Yeah, you talked about it a little bit in terms of the depth and the development. I think it's something we talk about with the U.S. soccer all the time about, especially in this modern setup where we have, Megan Rapinoe on the way out, some of the older players, and Sam Kerr isn't getting younger,
right?
Still insanely good. Is there anyone who's on that younger side that may be flying under the radar on the Matildas that people should be keeping an eye on?
I think, in terms of flying under the radar, the young stars over here have gotten a lot of publicity. I think one of the first things, the first thing that I saw here when I got off the airplane was a big sign with Ellie Carpenter on it. So there's no doubt that she's being marketed as the future. And we've continued to see that throughout the cities that we've been in, and Sydney and Brisbane. But some of the ones that I would take a look at as I look down the roster, I think a player like Charlotte Grant, they call her Charlie. She's one that I really have seen rise lately. She scored a goal in the England game, and the combination of the older players with the younger players is something that right now it's kind of looking like it's the last dance for the old guard with Team Australia. So Claire Polkinghorne, Lydia Williams, some of these, 50 plus or 100 plus cap type of players, Ivy Luik, who we got to talk to today in media availability. to that melding in with the younger group, Courtney Vine, to answer your question, is probably the one that I would tell you is being overlooked. I don't think people take her or her game seriously enough, because when you think Australia and you think the attack, you're thinking Sam Kerr, or maybe you're thinking about Von Egmond, who's played in WSL. So a lot of American fans have gotten to know her, and Caitlin Ford with her run of form. So Courtney Vine is getting in the starting rotation. She started against France, but not getting talked about a lot. And she's one that I wouldn't be surprised at all if she comes into one of these World Cup games and scores a goal, and then people are telling stories about her and trying to learn more about her, because she's establishing herself as one of the next candidates up. And the tangible speed, some of these things that she's got on her side, is the first thing that comes to mind. And that adds an element. Like Haley Rosso, for example, has been that speed player in the past, and she's still got some pace, but having Vine able to complement or supplement her depending on the matchup, it gives another weapon. It adds depth, and that's a breakout candidate for me. I would tell you Courtney Vine.
Bam is chiming in, and once again, he's giving you hints. He's like, you're Rick Steves for Brisbane. He's like, Bam is saying that you've got to go to Caxton Street or to Fortitude Valley. Both are party areas of Brisbane. I don't know how much partying Luke is going to be able to do, but Bam is going to be your de facto tour guide here. The other aspect of this that I also want to get into is, disappointingly, we have to talk about pay disputes. And Jack Snape of The Guardian yesterday, and I mean yesterday here in America, not where it was like half a day ago or a day and a half ago for you.
Right.
Jack Snape, he puts out, the article says there's a pay dispute and it's been thrust into the spotlight. Fears the campaign will distract against the opener against Ireland Thursday, but that has been rejected by Kate Gill, the head of the Professional Football Australia Country Football Union. Any vibe on this at all? Is it a distraction? Has it been mentioned? Has it been in questions? Is the thought pattern there at all, or have they just kind of tuned it out and it hasn't been brought up from you?
Well, I know it's been in questions because I actually asked two of those questions today. And Associated Press, yeah. So I can attest to that. I can vouch for that, number one. But the Associated Press was looking for a bit of advancement on that story of the Matildas. In Australia time, it's not midnight yet, so it'll be yesterday for us. There was this video that, I know, it messes with me too, but it's AEST over here. So there was a video that went out of the players, and if you haven't seen it yet, it's basically like holding up your iPhone, talking to, say a sentence here and there, and the players had the message that the video is pre-produced and put together. And basically it was taking a bit of an aim at FIFA, and really the main significance of it is it's the host team. And they're saying, hey, they've had an equal pay agreement for years with Football Australia, and they're very proud, both sides, we've talked to both, that are proud of the progress that they've made in Australia. But as a whole, when you look at the bigger picture, the prize money, it's about 25% of what the men get. And in their words, it's for doing the same task for winning the FIFA World Cup. So to them, it's looking to close the gap. And we've heard different comments from players like Alana Kennedy, one of those that's been around for a while with the Matildas. And she said that they decided as a team it'd be a shame not to use their platform, even though they've got it pretty good. But speaking up for the World Cup as a whole, as the host team, for the other teams, continuing to try to push the advancement and add another step forward in women's football, soccer, whichever you prefer. So that was one thing that we heard. The Football Australia president, or the people from Football Australia that we've talked to as a whole, really, the messaging has been a lot of the political side of things they've taken care of, the things with the flags of the Indigenous peoples, and some of the things have been taken care of before they really got into camp in Brisbane. And now that this has come up, they still don't really view it as a distraction. They say they're proud of the team, they're proud of who they are, and overall, it seems like there's not the conflict that would cause any kind of a distraction that could harm this team as they host. So it's not something I'm concerned about, but it's a statement. It's something to be aware about. And it's, if you look at the agendas and where things are going, that's the next step in women's soccer for where things are headed in the discussion of the big picture and equality. And I think these players are dead set on trying to make it better for the next generation, the same way that players like in Claire Polkinghorne and Lydia Williams' generation have made it better for the young players today, especially in Australia.
Go for it, Jared.
Has there been any more discussion and maybe momentum to trying to take a bigger chunk out of the world leagues within Australia for a women's league? It's something that we saw with, of course, the 99ers in the United States and the rise of domestic women's soccer. Now we've seen it in Europe with those leagues really picking up. Is there been any real discussion about this could springboard Australia's domestic leagues to try and take a chunk out of that apple?
There's been some discussion around domestic leagues so far. It's been not a lot too direct. The main discussion that they've had domestically has been with NPL and the way that the fees are, and the top tier soccer of saying, hey, it's costing $2,000 and $3,000 a season, and that's your elite level. So if you're charging people that much, how are you going to get elite players that are from families that can't afford that? So there's some conversation as to the development, and Football Australia is part of that. But there's been a lot of talk so far about this World Cup allowing and really being in a growth area. So places like Australia being in the time zones and the markets of a place like India and China, and trying to grow the game in those ways. But specifically for Australia's domestic league, the A-League, like the A-League women's, it's come up a little bit, but it hasn't been a huge point of discussion so far, I would say.
All right. A couple of other points with you before you crash and go to bed, since it is almost 11:30 your time. Bam has a couple of things. He wants to know if you're going to be heading to an NPL game, hopefully while you're down there. Don't know if you'll have the time to do it. But Bam has a question. He goes, another big question I have to ask Luke. Thoughts on the Australian money compared to the USA money?
I think I've found a really good excuse to rationalize spending. So, for example, I think it's about, in Australian dollars, maybe 60 or 60 something % of an American dollar. So if something's $20, I'd say, gosh, that's what, 13 or 14 American, that's not that bad. And then when I go back to America and something's $20, I could say, well, it'd be like 35 Australian. So now I can definitely buy it. So, flawed logic, but it's allowed me to make some fantastic souvenir purchases so far. And I definitely will have a nice credit card bill to look forward to when I get back.
Well, and now that you've opened that window, you know that we're probably going to be sitting here and going, okay, dude, we need you to do some shopping for us. Here's a helpful hint. If you start to get a lot of stuff, and with your time there, I imagine you're going to end up getting a lot of stuff. And I could see you after about 2 or 3 weeks, you'll sit there and go, man, I've gotten a lot of stuff. I don't know if all this is going to fit in my suitcase. Ship it home ahead of you. Literally, like go to DHL or whomever and ship it home ahead of yourself. So that way it doesn't weigh yourself down in the luggage. You're shipping everything home ahead of time. You don't have to worry about it.
I already had one issue when we were flying down to Brisbane. They're like, okay, we're flying Virgin Australia. They say your bag's got to be 7 kilos or less. And I was like, oh, I just bought a bunch of hoodies. Like, I love hoodies. And the bag, they put it on there, and they're like 9 kilos. And I was like, is there anything I can do? Can I take it? And they're like, no.
You wear it?
You're too old. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't make it work. So I had to do the little check the bag, and I was, take the loss and move on. And I might be taking your tips there before too long.
Okay. Bam is giving you once again a hint. Do you like different colored notes? Brisbane Lions play Geelong at the Gabba Saturday at 4:30. So, and that's for me, that, doing Australian rules football, that's strong. So AFL, definitely, if you can swing it, Brisbane and Geelong at the Gabba Saturday at 4:30. Yeah. And it is. Yeah. Michael Head says, yeah, it is going to cost a pretty penny to ship, but the thing is, you'd end up buying another suitcase. You'd have to pay the overages. You'd get the tag of shame. All of these things we're trying to avoid the young graduate student from having to deal with.
There you go.
We are looking out for the gentleman so he enjoys his first experience. So, Luke, I know it's 11:30 at night. Thanks for hanging out. Once again, I'll remind everybody, with the Women's World Cup coverage, you've got Group B, you've got Group of Death, you've got the Matildas, you've got the green light with us. Golden ticket status, just let me know in the overnight. our time. So whenever you want to come on the show this time, whatever day, you're batting leadoff. And if there's anybody else there in your group in Brisbane with you that is covering other teams or any other storylines, or anybody else there that wants to talk storylines, we'll bring them in for this 9:05 segment. We can turn it into a party line and cover everything going on with the Women's World Cup. So do not be surprised. A lot of the folks who are on our Twitch pitch have already started following you on the Twitters. And
Thank you.
Luke has the blue check sundial thing, and I found out that you can't DM somebody if you're not verified. You can't reach out and DM somebody who's verified, because them's the rules these days. But at Luke Winstel, if you want to know anything about the Women's World Cup, or during high school football season, you want to know about recruiting or anything like that, because I run into Luke in those circles too. Luke, thanks for hanging out with us late night there in Brisbane. Looking forward to your coverage here in the group stage, and looking forward to hearing and seeing everything that you guys from the University of Georgia are doing this entire time. Thanks for hanging out with us early this morning. Late night for you. Go to bed.
Thank you. Have a great rest of your morning over there.
There you go. It's morning. That's Luke. Yeah. So
there we go.
There you go, Luke. Thanks again, my friend. I appreciate it. That's Luke Winstel. So yes, Jarrett, we have. Yes, exactly.
He have on the ground. He is in one piece. Hopefully, his brain is still functioning, because that much international air travel will scramble anyone's mind.
Yes,
for the short term.
So yeah, follow Luke on the Twitters for those of you that tweet at Winstel.
And by the way, this could also become a hilarious weekend, because what's the date?
Today is the 18th.
Okay, I think tomorrow the fourth test of the Ashes goes off, and if Australia wins, they retain the Ashes.
Okay,
so they won the first two tests. England won the third. Hopefully, no one from Australia tears a leg muscle this time, but yeah, you could like roll through the weekend with Australia partying for the World Cup while also retaining the Ashes. So could be fun, could be stupid.
Yes,
could be all the above.
Oh, I'm thinking all the above. Yeah, Bam says that yes, Ashes kick off in 20.5 hours. So
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the 19th for us.
Yeah. So when let's see, 24 hours. So 22 hours when we go off the air. So you're looking at what? 12:30 tomorrow. 12:30 tomorrow afternoon is when the Ashes start. Man, we're having to do math.
Technically, it's in England.
Yeah.
I think it's in Manchester. I forget where the fourth test is. I saw a map and I forgot. Because I came to my mind last night because, thanks to you, John, I was watching Major League Cricket,
the
North American Cricket League, and oh, buddy, let me tell you about the changes in quality.
Oh yeah,
when you go from watching the Ashes to watching Major League Cricket on a T20 format, Jesus Christ.
By the way, this is the opening kickoff brought to us by our friends at Kickoff Coffee, kickoffcoffeeco.com. Don't forget to use the code SoccerDownHere15 to get 15% off your purchase. They, in turn, take 10% reinvested into the youth games and youth initiatives that they have been following. Kickoff Coffee and kickoffcoffeeco.com. Please proceed.
It was there's just a difference in quality. That's just part of the game. It's part of growing a league. But it was very different. I did appreciate just the fact that
wow.
Old Trafford for tomorrow.
Fourth test.
Old Trafford Cricket Ground. Okay,
there you go.
Yeah, it was just a difference in quality because we got done watching. I got done watching Raw because Nick and Jason were both at Raw in separate seats and were basically like updating us on the insanity of Raw. And then I'm going to bed. And then John's like, "There's cricket on CBSSN." Well, it's like I'm watching cricket then. And it was very weird, but whatever, man. Like between that and then now this morning, my feed is just Messi. Messi kicked the ball and Messi ran a drill.
He's
okay.
He's
cool.
Standing. He moved to his left. I'm watching practice right now with our friends at TAEC.
My favorite one was the reporter saying, I've been at these Miami practices often as the only reporter there, and right now there's no room to stand. This is insane. Because I feel that in my bones because, John, while you were calling games with the twos for the last few years, how often did you and Jason look over and I was the only one in the press box who didn't work for the club as a comms person?
Accurate. A lot.
Yeah. I
Yes.
do. Cool. He's practicing. Good.
He's
We've announced him.
His hands
at
are on
some
his hips.
point. But here's the thing, man. Like, okay, I want to know what is the day limit? At what point do we just let him practice? Let's see what they got.
Oh no.
Jesus.
No. That with TAEC there, with Tuda NA there. No.
It's not even them. They're not even the ones lighting up my feed. It's every North American reporter who was born in this country.
Messi's practicing. Holy ish. I mean, what we will probably end up doing is turning it
God,
into.
I hope he was.
Yeah, he's standing at the moment. Now they're all standing. I think they're getting words of wisdom from Tata on the.
Tata's going to build a. So if Coco, you're in Louisiana. I don't know if the fence is still there. I know that LSU's their practice field for football used to have this giant ass privacy fence.
Yeah.
So you couldn't just walk up and watch some practices.
No, I think probably what you're going to have eventually.
Tata's going to build a privacy fence.
Yeah, I think. Well, and I think probably what you're going to end up doing is. I think that probably because this is the first practice and this is Leagues Cup, it is different. So when it gets back into MLS season, you're going to go back to those regular parameters of, okay, you can only see or stand on the side of the practice pitch for a half hour. You can only see them do their first session, and then you can't do anything else about it. You've got to go inside and not be, standing out in the heat or something like that.
You say that like TAEC isn't going to have an unregistered
they're going to have a helicopter.
Hanging. Yeah, they're going to like TAEC is going to use whatever funds they have to purchase an old purchase an old spy drone,
Nick,
and like fly it. Oh no, it ain't gonna be Nick. Nick's got his certification now. Nick's not gonna risk it. They're gonna fly. They're gonna find some like old Cold War drone and fly that thing at the edge of the troposphere.
Yeah,
and take pictures from space.
Yeah, I mean that's right now so far at Lionel Messi's first practice. It's a lot of ground stuff. We have not gone to the helicopter shots or the drone shots yet. And I'm wondering if we get to that point. But Lionel Messi right now is standing in line for one of his drills. And so he is fourth in a line of 5. Now he's walking forward. And he is standing around waiting for his instruction in this particular drill. So that's where we are. Messi se entrena por TAEC Sports. That is where we are. Lionel Messi. Oh, Lionel Messi's jogging. Just made contact on a give and go. And it goes around the players. And so there he's jogging. So there we go. Congratulations, Inter Messi CF. You now have Lionel Messi at practice. Michelle Kaufman, by the way, reports that the Jordi Alba transaction will be the third one. And that will happen after the birth of his child. So after the birth of his child, expect that one to be the third edition. So we'll keep an eye on that one as we go. Jared had to drop for real world stuff, so I'm talking to Jared about that really quickly. So Old Trafford Cricket Ground. Yeah, well, yeah, Bam, waiting for the Messi limps off at training. Oh, what TAEC would do, guarantee you this. If there was something that was catastrophic or concerning, you literally would hear, I mean, it would almost be, oh, he just jumped. Wow. He just hurdled a soccer ball. It would be one of those Il Chiringuito kind of moments where you would probably have the suspenseful music Then you would go back to the studio with their anchors, and it would be something where they're talking about the end of the world. What does this mean? How does this affect Inter-MESSI CF? That kind of a thing. He's standing in line right now, by the way. And Coco thinks that this is kind of MLSE 2.0. It's, the Miami DP setup feels a lot like Gerrard and Lampard at NYC. And, I mean, the biggest thing, and you're building for next year. Tata Martino has given Chris Henderson a list of 4 very young players that he wants to bring into the fold. And you're looking at that as a part of the shopping list. All right, so let's go. Let's do what we always do in these situations. Let's workshop the future for Inter-MESSI CF. We've got this to talk about this morning. We've got CR38 to talk about. We've got all the news that's fit to print. Andre Onana might end up being the new starting keeper for Manchester United. Looks like that deal at just under £40 million is underway. So we've got gossip, rumor, and innuendo to talk about. Stuff to watch, to talk about, whatever's on your mind, whatever leftovers you have from the weekend. So once again, it is open Twitch pitch here on Tuesday. But as we say, with Luke and everybody down there in Australia, hopefully Luke will be able to visit us a lot. And then that way we can, give you every piece of information that you need when it comes to the Women's World Cup, at least from the group of death perspective, from Luke and everybody else down there. So it's a really cool thing that we were seeing with the University of Georgia and their graduate program. And so very, very cool looking at what they're doing. And that's why I wanted to have Luke talk about what it took for him to be a part of this and that's going on down there at down there in Australia to start things off this morning. Emilio, don't know if the Inter-MESSI's integration period will be like 8 weeks. Don't know. Here's a guy who, is getting into a training camp, and, you wonder how it'll lay itself out when it comes to him getting to figuring out the players and relationships and, okay, if he's going to do this, I'm going to do this, or is it just going to be pretty much him and Busquets and then letting everybody else figure it out? So we'll see. Abby brings up a question that I think Nick addressed yesterday. Abby still wants to know how he got a visa so quickly compared to the rest of the team's international players. When it comes to visas, and it was an interesting thought that I hadn't necessarily, it really hadn't triggered in my head until Nick brought it up. But considering all of the commercial relationships that MESSI has, here's how Nick phrased it yesterday, and it was, and it made a lot of sense. So here's how Nick phrased it yesterday. I see a lot of angst regarding the MESSI visa issue. With all of the U.S. endorsements MESSI has, Adidas, Hard Rock, Pepsi, etc., it would probably stand to reason that Team MESSI secured visas some time ago. I could be wrong, but it seems reasonable to me. So Nick posits, and I think that this is a legitimate idea to bring to the table because of all of the commercials that we've seen. I mean, the Lay's ad, the Pepsi ads, all the stuff involving Champions League, all those kinds of things. And and background check Emilio probably is a lot easier. He's a known quantity. So you can, and for superstars or whatever word you want to use, I think the process, much like what Emilio is talking about here, because of entertainers or individuals of import, you can kind of get to the front of the line in these situations. And so along with that idea, the notion that because Lionel Messi has been tied to a lot of domestic products and ad campaigns because of his sponsorships, that it would be a lot easier for him to get that visa, A, as a celebrity, B, as someone who has import, and C, with his commercial history. And I mean commercial in the sense of not television ads, but his ties to products that are bought and sold here in the United States, with television advertisements that are seen here in the United States. So, I mean, it does make a lot of sense that it would be easier for Lionel Messi to get to the front of the line in a couple of different ways. By the way, TSA has gone to commercial. I guess they're trusting for a 2-minute breakaway that nothing will happen to Lionel Messi and that he will be okay. He'll be okay running around in his drills for the next 2 minutes before we duck back in live with our camera and we show Lionel Messi either standing, being in line for a drill, or hurdling a soccer ball at the training facility for Inter-MESSI CF. So as we were talking about with Inter-MESSI CF, here's what you're looking at when it comes to the individuals on the roster and the decisions that they have to make. And by the way, right now, Inter-MESSI CF has a current transfer record in the negative. I mean, it's almost €3 million, but nevertheless, it's still in the negative. So contracts ending this calendar year. You've got the U22s with Frey and Escona, so you don't have to worry about those. End of this calendar year. Jake LaCava, which is actually at the end of November, which is interesting. Marsman, Ulloa, Joseph, because remember, Joseph was a 1-year deal. Dixon Arroyo, Robert Taylor, Ariel Lassiter, Kamal Miller, Robbie Robinson, Ryan Saylor, Imi Mabika, a couple of players for CF2, Lawson Sunderland, Tyler Hall, Israel Boatwright. That's your 23s right there. That's the end of the calendar year. That's the decisions that Chris Henderson, Tata Martino, and everyone else associated with next year and the build for next year. That's what you're staring at. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 players for Inter Miami of the 30 that are currently on the roster, almost half of the roster in its entirety. Contracts end at the end of the calendar year, including Joseph. So that's what you're looking at when it comes to Inter-MESSI CF and the decisions that have to be made. Busquets, Messi through 25. Those are on the board. That's our friends at Transfermarkt have yet to drop Busquets and Messi into their ideas, but Messi and Busquets, identical contract. I know that shocks you. Do not be surprised if the same thing happens with Jordi Alba. I mean, all of this stuff is geared to have contracts end at the end of the 25 season as a part of the push and the ambassadorial efforts for Messi and whomever else wants to do this to get ready for the 26 World Cup. At 20, in 26, do you want to play that one more year? Do you want to be celebratory? Do you want to get out in 25, be an ambassador for 26? That's probably how it would end up being. But 14 of the 30 players currently under contract for Inter-MESSI CF, decisions have to be made at the end of the year. Frey and Escona are U22s. Not talking about them. Jake LaCava, Nick Marsman, Ulloa, Joseph, Dixon Arroyo, Robert Taylor, Lassiter, Miller, Robbie Robinson, Ryan Saylor, Mabika, 3 players for CF2, Sunderland, Hall, and Boatwright. Then you have other players who are 24s, and that's another 3, 6, 7, so 21, 9 for 2024. 3 of them currently injured. Quarantine Jean Mota, and Gregory. CJ Dos Santos under contract to 24. Krivtsov through 24. McVeigh, Stefanelli, Franco Negri injured. So 23 of the 30, 14 of the 30 at the end of this year. 23 of the 30 next year. So that's what you're looking at with Inter-MESSI CF. Coco. Joseph was a 1-year deal, shown nothing to be renewed. Wonder what he does after this season. Don't know. I mean, do you go do you go to South America? Does another MLS team take a flyer on you? Because you know that the same discussions that we had with Joseph and him finding a home inside Major League Soccer, they're probably going to be had again at the end of this season. Let's look at Joseph's numbers so far this year. Stats for the current year for Joseph Martinez. 20 competitions, 4 in Open Cup, 6 goals, 1 assist. 6-1 in 24. He's played 1,600 minutes in 24 matches. He's had a decent run of starting form. He was captain for 4 of the last 5. You've got, his run recently after being on the bench in Columbus. 33 minutes, 60, 45, started, went 90, 30, started, went 90, started, went 45, started, went 90, started 90, started, went 87, off the bench played 16, started 87, started 90. That's the last 3, 6, 9, 12, 13 matches for Joseph after being on the bench and not played April 30th. So that's what Joseph has done. Yeah, Abby, end of November for La Cava means they don't expect to go to MLS Cup since that's in December. La Cava, I'll say this. La Cava is a sneaky good pickup if you're looking for depth. Started scoring, like I said, 6 and 24. Maybe somebody picks him up, but once again, it's going to have to be to his salary demand. And you wonder how many teams in Major League Soccer are going to meet his salary demand and meet his demand for wanting to be an integral part of a team's offense. Or after this season, if the conversations go well, and Lionel Messi right now is anticipating his next move, and he's standing around at practice, by the way. Does Joseph say, I'm cool, I'll accept this role on this roster at Inter MESSI CF? Don't know. That's another element in all of this. Like I said, it's a 1-year deal. Scored 6 and 24 in all comps so far this year. But with what's going on at Inter MESSI, and Joseph is standing around right next to Messi a lot, and he's talking to him a lot. Does the situation get to a point to where Joseph sits there and says, I will stay, I will take a lesser role to be a part of this roster if it fits the overall plan? That's a discussion that's going to have to be had with Chris Henderson, with Tata Martino, and with Joseph. We'll see. Parzival, Joseph would be a good sub when Gigi has to come off to save minutes. The only problem with that is that you need someone who is going to help out defensively, and Joseph does not do that. Be good, Uncle, if you're still hanging out with us. He would not be coming back to Atlanta. And Emilio, you're right, you're spot on. He's got to consider taking less than a DP. That's the thing. That's going to be a part of this. Coco, Joseph had to be betting on himself to get back to scoring consistently so he could stick around for the MESSI years in Miami. Just hasn't happened, like I said. So we will see. We will see what the thought pattern is at the end of this season for a team that is right now 12 points out of the last playoff spot in the East. And the East being as hyper competitive as it is and as crazy as it is, it will be interesting to see the sprint when we come out of Leagues Cup. Definitely we will see the sprint when we come out of Leagues Cup. Because in the East, right now, here's how things stand. Cincinnati's 8 points clear. They're going to get the Captain America Defender pie plate at this point. And that really doesn't mean a whole heck of a lot. It has meant less and less as we've gone here in the league. New England's at 43. Philadelphia's at 40. That's your 1, 2, 3. They've all played 23 matches. Then you have 3 points separating 4 through 7. Nashville, Orlando, Columbus, Atlanta. Basically, one win. If you have a good week, you could be 4th in Major League Soccer in the Eastern Conference right now. Chicago's at 32. DC's at 30. After DC, Montreal's at 29 points. 3 teams are at 26. 4 points out of a playoff spot. Red Bulls, Charlotte, they've each got 6 wins. They got identical records. Red Bulls are 6 better in goal difference, -4 to -10. And I think that might be the undoing for Charlotte if you're getting into tiebreakers and things like that. And it also appears that Sergi Busquets is at training. So Sergi Busquets is also standing around. What a joyous day for soccer and soccer media, all 200 of them that are at the MESSI CF complex. NYCFC is also at 26 points, but they have 1 less win. They've played 1 more as well. 5, 8, and 11. Then you've got Toronto and Miami trying to battle it out for Wooden Spoon along with Colorado. But where the battle in the East is for positioning behind Cincinnati, in the West, it's positioning either 1 through 4 or 5 through 9. All Caps are at 41 points, 4 points ahead of LAFC. LAFC has a below 500 record on the road. RSL with Chicho Arango, they are going to be sneaky dangerous. I mean, if you haven't been watching RSL, keep an eye on RSL. 37 points. Behind on goal difference. Same number of wins as LAFC. Chicho Arango, sneaky good pickup. Seattle's at 36. Austin's, and here's that second group I was talking about. 4 points separating 5 through 10. So basically six teams separated by 4 points to get into the playoffs. Austin's at 32. They have 1 more win than San Jose. Vancouver's at 31. Dallas is at 30. Houston's at 29. That's your playoffs right now. But Minnesota is having their Pookie party in the land of 10,000 lakes. Brought in Israel Tajuri-Shradi. And you had Pookie and Tajuri-Shradi scoring 2 of the 3 goals recently for Adrian Heath, and I don't think he could have been happier. Minnesota's right now 1 point out of the playoffs. Sporting and Portland are both at 26. Is this the end for Gio Savarese if they don't make the playoffs? LAG's at 22 points at 5, 10, and 7 after 22 matches. And then Colorado, once again, we mentioned them chasing after the Wooden Spoon. 19 points, 3, 10, and 10. And if they did not have William Yarbrough in net, I think it would be even worse. Even worse. They've given up 30 goals in 23 matches, but they've only scored 16. They have the worst offense in Major League Soccer, 16 goals scored. Toronto's got 18. Then as tied for third, or worst, third worst. Enter MESSI, Montreal, Red Bulls. They all have 22 goals. Obviously hoping that MESSI helps things out there. So that's what you're staring at when it comes to who's in, who's out right now. So that's what you're looking at. I know, Abby, we're looking at 3 points. But, and correct, Jim, the West is not the best. There is a big difference in the East and the West. The East is just crazy to begin with. The West has groups. The East is crazy. So that's what you're staring at with that. It is the top of the hour, which means one thing. It means that I have to sit here and try and figure out what my audio levels are going to be like so I can read a promo and make sure that if I read the promo slow enough that things will not get bounced around and you hear the same piece of music more than once. So here we go. For odor-free, clean, fresh air, one place you need to go. It's the Lemonize service. QR code over my left shoulder for those of you watching on Twitch. Lemonize deodorizes enclosed spaces like houses, apartments, and condos. Lemonize has created a customized solution that eliminizes all organic odors, including those like pets, cigarettes, and food. Realtors and property managers use a Lemonize service to eliminate bad odors to help them sell or rent their homes that much faster. It's a turnkey process, makes it easy to work with realtors and property managers. Kind of the environment we like that these days. It's a very, very green way to get rid of odors without any kind of toxic residue whatsoever. A Lemonize service different than Febreze or other masking agents that you have either under the sink or above you in the cupboard, because when you reach under the sink or above you in the cupboard and you grab that masking agent and you spray it in the air, there's a reason they call it a masking agent. You're masking the odor. You're not attacking the problem like our friends at a Lemonize service do with their proven scientific formula. Pricing very, very easy, one of two ways, either by the cubic foot or parts per million to come up with a price that's affordable for you, offering results in 24 hours or less. It's our friends at Lemonize. And if you have any other questions, frequently asked or otherwise, you go to the website, lemonize.com, and this is where I grab my pen, because after the .com, we'd like for you to do us a favor. Do us a solid. Help us out. Help a guy out. Go /Atlanta, so they know what part of the world that you are reaching out to them from, so they can help you with your issues. Full homework assignment. ELIMINIZE.com /Atlanta, Lemonize.com /Atlanta. The Lemonize service, proud sponsors of everything SDH. For your Tuesday thoughts, Lemonize service for odor-free, clean, fresh air. Now in the 10 o'clock hour, and it appears that folks are standing around. Looks like Funes Mori has started his first practice sessions with River Plate, in addition to Lionel Messi and Sergi Busquets either standing around hip-hopping or hurdling or being involved in passing drills in Fort Lauderdale. So we got that this morning. And we got a lot of other stuff to get into, all of the gossip, rumor, and innuendo that we've got this morning. No, I don't think. I mean, Michael, all right, so let's do this. So Michael is asking, is the East just a bunch of meh besides Cincinnati? All right, so then, all right, let's do side by side. Let's do a full league. Let's do a full league deal. Let's do a full league deal. All right, so here's your race for the Captain America pie plate. Here's how it looks. We'll break it all down, and we'll go for the pie plate here. We'll break it all down this way. And so what we'll do, go what? As low as, say, 24? Or no, sorry, 18, because 18 gets you into the playoffs. Okay, so all right. So here is, and now I'm going to have to do some math. I'm going to do some tick mark math here. Okay. So East, West. Line down the page, line across the page. All right. Captain America pie plate race. Cincinnati, East. New England, East. St. Louis, currently third. West. Philly, East. Nashville, East. LAFC, West. Orlando, East. RSL, West. Columbus, East. Seattle, West. Atlanta, East. Austin, West. Chicago, East. San Jose, West. Vancouver, West. Dallas, West. DC, Montreal, East. So it was close. I mean, it ends up being close at 10-8 for the 18 teams. That, let's just say if it was an all-in tournament, 18 teams make it in, it's 10-8 East. But after 13, or before we got to 13, it was 8-5. You had 8 Eastern Conference teams. You had 5 Western Conference teams. in the first 13, and it finished up 10-8 after 18. So the East, and the East, let's look at the East. East is at 1 and 2. West is at 3. East is 4-5. So 4 of your top 5 teams are in the Eastern Conference right now, chasing after the Captain America pie plate. LAFC made it 4-2. Orlando made it 5-2. 5 of the top 7 are in the East. 6 of the top 9 are in the East. So 6 of 9, 7 of 11, 8 of 13, and that's where you're going here. So it's stacked East at the top when it comes to the top teams chasing after the Captain America pie plate. And like I said, I just took all of the standings and chased it and put them all into one thing. So it's stacked in the East up top, chasing after things. So if you were to try to put, teams in the West in the Eastern Conference, let's do it this way. So conference standings. All right. So if you were to put St. Louis in the East, they'd be 3rd. If you put LAFC in the East, they would be 10-6-7, 10-6-7, goal difference of 9, goal difference of 6. LAFC would be 5th. I'm having to do tiebreakers in my head. RSL at 37 points would be 6th, behind Orlando. Seattle, 36 points and a +6, would be 7th. Actually, wait a second. 10 wins. Yeah, they'd be 7th because of goal difference being the second tiebreaker. Then Austin, San Jose would be in a battle for 8-9. Austin would be 8. Chicago would be 9. San Jose would be 10. So literally, the teams in the West would be no higher than 3rd, and it would be 3, 5, 6, 7, or 9. So that's what we're staring at. That's what we're looking at. Okay. So thank you, Ricky. So we can do this kind of stuff too. So and we get into the watch parties at Wild Heaven, yes, and all the promos and things like that. No, most questionably, most certainly we will. Most certainly, we will get into those kinds of things. So thank you, Ricky, for letting us know this in real time. So go ahead and hit it. Mexico and Uzbekistan. The tour for El Tri is returning to Mercedes-Benz Stadium September 12th. First ever match against Uzbekistan. Uzbekistan, I think they were trying to play in Minneapolis and St. Louis. And Uzbekistan was one of those teams that they were trying to figure out, could Canada possibly have Uzbekistan as an opponent if they could schedule some fall friendlies and things like that to help out with revenue. But it looks like Mexico has stepped in. We'll play Uzbekistan, and we'll play them at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, September 12th. Obviously, no ticket information as of yet, but it is out the door. Tuesday, September 12th, Mexico and Uzbekistan at MBS. There you go. So, Mexico and Uzbekistan. Third friendly before the U.S. team plays one. Bart brings that up. By the way, Bart will be with us tomorrow at 10:30 for his views on the U.S. women's national team and any other World Cup stuff that's going on in his mind. If there's any reffing down here that pops up at 10:30, then we can take a peek at that. But, I mean, it doesn't seem – Michael, he says turf strikes again, but it doesn't seem to bother El Tri. It's something else. So Mexico playing their third friendly at Mercedes-Benz September the 12th against Uzbekistan. To that point, I'm wondering if the Canadian national team will finally figure things out to where they can get some fall friendlies. I'm not holding my breath. Bart says the MNT and the WNT, meaning the U.S., their PAs are really against turf, which you get. It just really sucks. So, Abby will not be attending. Well, he's not on her list to go see Mexico and Uzbekistan, but you are going to Andrew Jones Bobblehead Night, September the 9th at up in Cobb County. If you try and throw something at the bobblehead low and away, does it swing and miss? Just thought I would ask. Well, if as I'm sitting here and I'm buzzing through everything, Abby, yes, time for the promo. Wild Heaven, Friday. It's going to be a long night, 7:00, and Jason and I will be there. SDH will be there to hang out with y'all as the United States is going to take on Vietnam, and we will see Bart for the last time before he hops on a plane, loses a day and a half of travel, and figures out how to convert to Australian dollars, hopefully in a decent way, where the percentage taken by the exchange agent isn't all that much, but it's $1.40 to $1. So you ought to be able to get, as Luke Winstel told us in the first hour, you ought to be able to get some decent shopping done. So we'll keep an eye on that. Tom Russo, looking at the standings, upcoming schedule, just don't see us getting to 44 points, which is likely what will be needed for the playoffs. It wasn't necessarily new math, Amelia. It was more of a composite where you sit there and it's like, okay, if you're chasing after the Captain America pie plate, here's the deal. But I know a lot of folks were sitting there and talking about East versus West. So I figured I'd just throw them all together and figure out, okay, how many teams for the top 5 are in the East right now when it comes to points. So we'll see what happens as we go. Michael Head, good question. East versus West head-to-head. Do we have an answer for that? Form guide. Let me see if the form guide has anything in it. Form guide's more of a composite. Okay, so now you sent me down a rabbit hole. Hang on just a second. I feel like I need to have some kind of what's the word I'm looking for? I need to have like dialing music or something. Okay. Conference standings. That's full East and West. Playoffs. Well, let's see if goal.com can help us here. No, this was something that happened at the beginning of the season. That does not help me out right now. So there's got to be something in there with Major League Soccer to sit there and say, okay, the composite for one versus East versus West is like this. Somebody's got to have that somewhere. Michael, that's a great question. Also on the board this morning, Michael to Tom, having to play Cincy twice is brutal. Maybe they won't care on decision day. That's probably true. Abby says they think they need to check out the new turf. It's not like the carpet on concrete. Yeah, no kidding. Definitely not like the old welcome mat on top of cement. Definitely not. Yeah, and the Emilio national team just seems always angry about something. Michael's like, just go to an ATM to get foreign currency. Grass or nothing. And Abby says gives them so many more opportunities to play and not have to deal with the weather. Accurate. We were talking about the guy who's practicing and doing toe touchies. It's tape. Okay, so they have stopped. Or it looks like it's tape. All right, so I think we've gone from and there's the shot right there. Say it took a while to figure out the framing, but they finally got it figured out. It's Busquets, Messi, and Tata, all 3 in a line. So they finally got that shot. They were looking at it, trying to figure it out for like 2 hours. They finally got that shot where they're all 3 in a line. And Lucas Blondell Looks like he might be joining Boca Juniors for 1.8, 4-year contract. They're keeping an eye on that. We're talking about what's going on down there in Fort Lauderdale. And traditionally, the other half of the equation, the guy that you're either always team one or team the other. Well, team the other decided to chime in, as he has always want to do. And yes, Emilio, you're absolutely correct. Playing in Minnesota in February is so much more productive than playing a game in the Benz. Well, you want to freeze out the opponent. Yeah. Michael, just think MBS could have done the field like Glendale, rode into turf out. The dome was there. It isn't now. And that was probably part of it, where you don't have the space to do the pie plate. But, I mean, and you, what Spurs Stadium, when that came online, where they have the sunken availability where they can keep an eye on the turf itself and they can continue to manicure it and grow it and those kinds of things in the grass and make sure that you can do those kinds of things. I think initially that was what they were thinking, as if there were going to be any kind of renovations to Mercedes-Benz, it would be like what they have at Spurs, where you can drop the grass underneath a certain level. You can maintain the grass, and then when you need the grass, you pull the turf up, and then you bring the ground up basically, and it's grass. When you don't need it, you go back down to your normal surface, and then you have the artificial surface there. I think that was what was talked about for a possible renovation a couple of years ago for Mercedes-Benz or something like that. But yeah, the other half of the equation, you're either team guy or team other guy. Well, other guy decided to have a press conference, or it might have been something involving the Saudi Professional League. And so CR38 right now plays for Al Nassr. They didn't even win the championship last year. I think they finished second. Was asked about joining MESSI in Major League Soccer. No, he replied, after they lost 5-0 to Celta de Vigo and Rafa Benitez in a friendly. I think that Arabia is a much better league than the United States. I'm going to say that again. I think that Arabia is a much better league than the United States. That's what CR38 said when he was asked about going to join MESSI in Major League Soccer. Highest paid player in the world, makes 175 million pounds or $217.4 million bucks a year. According to sources close to Al Nassr, the club will pay a tenth of that wage. The rest is covered by the Saudi state. And this gets into that big four that we were talking about, where the PIF and the Saudi government is locked into elevating the big four and then hoping that eventually you'll have other private entities, not state-controlled, come in and possibly pull percentages of the ownership groups from those four and the teams underneath the big four that they already have the interest in. Messi's going to get about 50 to 60 million annually, and that involves equity in the franchise, the NIL deal that we're talking about. Don Garber will get into these comments in a sec. He says he's not threatened by the growing influence of the Saudi Professional League. So you've got that. The Saudi Pro League he says, I think Arabia is a much better league than the United States. Yeah. When you're getting paid 200 and something, yeah, Abby, you're right. CR38 is getting paid to say that. He is getting paid to say that. No matter how ludicrous it is, he's getting paid to say it. Michael, turf's the only thing that holds MBS from being the best stadium in the world. All of his European friends, they look at it and shake their heads. Tafka on whether MESSI can save Miami's season and make the playoffs. 12 games remaining, more than anybody else. 6 are below the playoff line, 2 against 7th and 8th teams. Doable. 12 points behind is a climb, but the schedule sets up nicely. And yes, Ramiro Funes Mori did start his practice at River today. At the same time that Lionel Messi is hopping up and down, and they're showing the same video. So it's live video of Ramiro Funes Mori at River Plate, and it's the same hopping up and down that we've seen early on with practice this morning with Lionel Messi. Yeah, and Tom, of course, that egomaniac is going to say stupid ish like that. He's just mad Leo's getting all the attention. Of course, team didn't win a title. Getting paid $217 million a year, 21 from the club, the rest from the state. You are going to be saying those things. Let's see what else is going on. Okay. It looks like Parsifal. I don't know if MBS is doing anything different in the walk-through tunnel for the Miami game. I would imagine that August, September. You've got 2 months. You have 2 months to figure out your security. You have 2 months to figure out how you're going to handle things from a coverage standpoint, because it is going to be nuts. But you've got 2 months to figure it out. And I imagine that the second Lionel Messi was being rumored to have been signed and brought in by Miami, any team that is going to be having a possible road influence from Inter Messi CF was trying to figure out, okay, how do we open the building? How do we open it up to more? How do we get our security squared away? What's the media going to be like? What's the madness going to be like? All that kind of stuff. Will there be a special room that is going to be available for the press, unlike, standard situations, regardless of the building that we're talking about, that you've got for Miami? I don't know. I don't think they're going to do anything special for Joseph, but for his new teammate and his new teammates, Alba, Busquets, Alba, Michelle Kaufman, we said it in hour number one, very confident it's still going to go down once the birth of his child is complete, and Alba is ready to come off of, I guess, what would be the equivalent of a paternity leave. But haven't heard anything planned for the return for Joseph. But just anticipate. And I'm going to say this: whatever your time frames are for getting to Mercedes-Benz, add at least an hour. Add an hour at least. Take public transportation. Make sure everything's planned. Come by Reverb by Hard Rock at 1 o'clock. See, this is what you do. You come in early. Make sure that you're in the area. Show up at Reverb by Hard Rock at 1 o'clock, because that's when SDH will be doing their kickoff show. Next kickoff show, by the way, is for the Nashville game. But yes, get in early, get in the compound early, get in that whole area early. It'll be interesting to see what happens. So also it is being linked, and now once again we look at, Tom, I don't know if there will be any kind of a to-do. Really don't. Off the heels of, let's see, Arba Brisbane. Atlanta United will soon launch their first bid for Diego Rossi. Reports in Atlanta have denied interest. One to keep an eye on as rumors persist. Once again, we will always say this: we don't know what we don't know. And Atlanta United, traditionally, historically, is not going to sit there and have any kind of a public display of a back and forth when it comes to negotiating publicly. That's not going to happen. Not going to happen. So let's see. Once again, Diego Rossi once again finished second in the league. Once again, remember 5 days ago, Yaji Sabunchuolu from our buddies at Sports Digital was the one that was announcing the initial interest by Diego Rossi. So Sabuncuolu has over 923,000 followers. So we're sitting there going, okay, that one works. But going back, and I'm going back into anything recent, it does not appear that Sabuncuolu is mentioning anything different involving Rossi. Arba Bierben, if I could spell it, not Arba Bearden, not like J.J. Burden, the wide receiver. Arba Bierben. Let's see. Latest out of from Arba Bierben. Arba Bierben is not on the Twitters. So, okay, that's an interesting one. So Diego Rossi apparently is being pursued, and it wasn't the first time that we had said that Diego Rossi was being chased by Atlanta United. Dylan Walsh at HITC launching their first bid to bring him back to MLS. Previously a DP. Okay, Bierben Arda, that would be why. Rossi, for background, joined Fenerbahce back in 2021, initially on loan before Istanbul's Giants made the transfer permanent in 22, now expected to leave the Turkish club this summer. According to Dylan Walsh in the UK, Atlanta now is leading the charge. 10 goals, 20 assists, 90 appearances. Yet to hit the heights many expected the versatile winger to make when he moved to Europe 2 years ago. Walsh says that attacking width is something Atlanta had been crying out for all summer. Rossi could deliver that and then some if they can strike a deal with Fenerbahce. Once again, free DP spot. So that's what you're looking at there. So looking at, it's Arda Bierben, not Arba. That would be why. Okay, Arda Bierben has 48,000 followers on the Bird app. And as of 4 o'clock this morning, so this was 6 hours ago. 6 hours ago, Arda Bierben, 48,000 followers on the Bird app. And apparently, our buddy Yaji's Sabuncuolu from Sports Digital fist bumped Bierben on the Bird app about this pickup of information. Quote, MLS teams Atlanta United interested in Diego Rossi. The official offer is expected to reach the club shortly. So that's what you're looking at. So Arda Bierben, otherwise known as Bierben Arda on the Twitters. So that's where this one came from. Arda's, in the safe zone, he's got over 48,000. Got 48,000 on the Bird app. So that's the handle. That's the handle right there. So keep an eye on that. Once again, that one is, Sabuncuolu and Arda Bierben. And okay, all right. So this is also another piece of news this morning. We'll get into this once I can find my my sounder and get it to the appropriate. I thought I hit the stop button, but I didn't when I hit it the first time. From the twos, Highmar has been transferred to City Nacional de Madeira. So Highmar has been transferred. That comes out this morning. City Nacional de Madeira in Portugal's second division. 9 matches this year, scored 1 goal in MLS Next Pro. Last season, 4 goals, 6 assists, 24 appearances, 21 starts in USL Championship. He joined the club from Atlético Paranaense back in March of 22. And so Highmar has been transferred to a team in Portugal's second division. So there were points where, Highmar couldn't stay healthy, but you could see the talent that was there with Heimar when he was at 100%. So hoping he can do really well for Nacional de Madeira in Portugal. So Heimar has been moved to Portugal Second Division from Atlanta United. So wishing nothing but the best for Heimar going forward. Thank you for that. So it's been kind of a busy morning in a bunch of different fronts. Not necessarily a surprise, but Heimar transferred out. Mexico is going to play a home match against Azerbaijan, or a touring match against Azerbaijan. A lot of things kind of bouncing around. That's what we are right now when it comes to this time of the year. Parzival, does the team meet at the stadium? Saw Coach walking through the stadium before the bus arrived that he arrived on. I don't. What's your context here, Parcel? I'm trying to figure out where we are. Brought it to the game in Fort Lauderdale, pick and post. Okay, so no, we're not at the panic and overpay. We're not at the panic and overpay part yet. Like I said, just go back to the closer. You've still got 30 days has September, April, June, and November 13. You've still got 2 weeks. You still have 2 weeks to come up with the discussions and things like that. If this is with the reporters in Turkey, Birbin and Sabanchuolu, who have been the two that have been discussing this, bringing Rossi to the fore. So let me see what the transfer number was for Rossi for when he was moved to Fenerbahce. Of course, I misspelled Fenerbahce. Back in 22, Fenerbahce announced the deal was about $6 million, €5.5 million. Sources tell MLS, including the initial loan fee, the total package is around 10. LAFC also retain a sell-on percentage. One source described as significant. So wherever Diego Rossi ends up, there's going to be a sell-on fee to LAFC. Good piece of business for them. So it's a good piece of business for them if it does end up being what it was. So the total package, $10 million, including the initial loan fee. The deal was at $6 million at the time. So if Fenerbahce is trying to regain their money, might be in the neighborhood of 6+, and we'll see what happens there. But sell-on percentage, LAFC, good piece of business by them if it does end up being what it is. So obviously we'll keep an eye on that stuff. I'm trying to see if there's anything, if it's live video or if we're still on tape. Well, they went to commercial. So I think they seem to be fairly confident in the toe touchies and the drills and all this kind of stuff. So seems like things are about as normal as it can be with 200 media members at Enter MESSI CF's training ground, and the toe touchies are out, done, and gone. So happy day one for those who celebrate with Lionel Messi in training. Getting through all of the other news, we mentioned this morning when Luke Winstel was on about how, and this is Women's World Cup based, how the players are speaking out about the iniquities when it comes to the purses. The purse for the Women's World Cup is 1/4 that of the men's. And Gianni Infantino came and he spoke publicly, and he was saying that by 26 and 7 that should be equal and all these kinds of things. We mentioned how the Matildas had their statement posted to social media. The Lionesses, and what we probably should also try and do is figure out when Jessica Charman can come on with us to discuss things from a Lioness perspective. They wanted performance-related bonuses put in place before the World Cup starts. Doesn't look like that's going to happen. They hit out at the FA, failing to agree to a bonus structure with them before the tournament. All 25 players, and this comes from Tom Gary at the Telegraph, all 25 players in Brisbane have put their signature to a damning statement, his words, in which they say they're putting negotiations on hold but will revisit the issue after the tournament. The dispute between players and the FA has been a long-running issue. with the Lionesses wanting performance-related bonuses put in place before the World Cup starts. Squad won an additional bonus structure to be agreed on top of the global agreement reached between FIFA and FIFPro earlier this year. Women's World Cup sees players from each nation bonuses organized by FIFA, same amounts going to every player in the competition, ranging from $270,000 on the winning team to $30,000 for each player who exits at the group stage. Deal represents a major increase on previous editions of the tournament in some countries, such as the U.S. and Australia national governing bodies, adding to that with additional bonuses of their own. It is on that which the Lionesses and the FA have been negotiating. However, many other nations do not have a standalone deal, including Germany. On Tuesday, England players issued a joint statement which they made clear the feelings on the issue. Players' statement last year, we presented the FA with concerns relating to our bonus and commercial structures. The hope was that discussions would lead to a solution before the commencement of the World Cup. Paragraph 2, we're disappointed the resolution still has not been achieved. We view the successful conclusions of these discussions through player input and transparent long-term plan as key for growth of women's football in England. PFA reacted, providing support to the Lionesses throughout the discussions, believed to be calling for a collective bargaining agreement for the women's players in England, akin to that is here in the United States. So keep an eye on that. It may not, and that was why I wanted to bring up with Luke the idea where, you're talking about distractions and things like that. If you're the home country and you're distracted, with a lot of promise, and here's the path, by the way. This was the one thing that I didn't quite get into with Luke this morning. You're talking about the home team, how they could get to a final. Here's how the home team could get to a final. The top of Group B, Denmark, France, semifinal Germany, and a final against the United States. The Guardian says, barring any major upsets, Sweden, Spain, Norway, the Netherlands, and maybe even Japan probably progress to the knockouts. The U.S. will be there too. Path 2, if the Matildas finish second in Group B, Germany, France, USA, and a round of 16 against England. So that's a tall order. So what you're looking for if you are the Matildas, win the group. Win the group. Did I mention win the group? You got to do that. Other bits of news. Former Haiti FA President Jean Bart due in court over sexual abuse allegations. This is from Ed Aarons and Romain Molina. Former president of Haiti's Football Federation set to appear in court after campaigners won the right to appeal against a prosecution decision to drop the case. Remember, it was dismissed back in November 2020. Understood that an appeal led by 5 human rights organizations representing some of the alleged victims was heard last week by a judge in Port-au-Prince. Judge ruled that the magistrates, the district where the FHF's National Training Center is based and many of the incidents are alleged to have taken place, must now hear the appeal. Jean Bart banned from football for life by FIFA's Ethics Committee back in November 2020 after he was accused of harassing and sexually abusing female footballers, but had his ban overturned in February by CAS, the Court of Arbitration for Sport, which decided that, quote, none of the testimonies heard by CAS were sufficiently precise and convincing to establish guilt. FIFA's appeal against that verdict was rejected by the Swiss Federal Tribunal in late June. Provisional judgment of the judge in Haiti says Jean Bart must appear in court in October to respond to claims he sexually abused players at the National Training Center, including minors. The Réseau National de Défense des Droits Humains, the Solidarité Femmes Haïtiennes, and K-FEM, women's rights organizations in Haiti, were among those behind the appeal to have all of that reopened. Jean Bart informed FIFA of his intention to return as president of the FHF in February after he was cleared by CAS although that was rejected by FIFA after it appointed a normalization committee after his banning. FIFA did not want to comment on the update for Jean Bart. Once again, shocking no one. Golasso Argentino. MLS team of the season so far according to league ratings. Starting 11. Win the group. Yes, win the group B. But like I said, that goes from the projections of our friends at The Guardian. If you win the group, what your paths were going to be for the home side if they were going to get past the time that Luke Winstel and our friends from the University of Georgia were going to be there and work their way into the knockout. Out of Golasso Argentina, Who Scored has a team of the season according to league ratings. Some of this won't surprise you. In net, Georgi Petrovic had a 7.11. And this is laid out as a 4.42. Your back line, Kai Wagner, Mosqueda from Cincinnati, and Rodriguez from the Quakes. All in the low sevens. 7.16, 7.1, 7.09. MLS team of the season so far at right back, Brooks Lennon. On the season, Brooks has averaged a 7.03. Midfield, Espinoza at a 7.42, Lucho Acosta at a 7.67, Lucas Zelarayan at a 7.88, Thiago Almada, 7.82. And this is the one that surprises me. Not the Hani Mukhtar part at 7.36, but Christian Benteke. Belgian breadloaf no more. At least here in Major League Soccer. 7.39. But, once again, according to the Who Scored, our friends at Who Scored, team of the season so far includes Thiago Almada and Brooks Lennon. If that, once again, does not show that Brooks Lennon, and legitimately, I have no idea what else Brooks Lennon needs to do to prove that he should be getting at least looks in substantial National League camps. Yeah, I know, Bart. Bart's mentioning, but Julian Gressel. How do we do this? Brooks Lennon, greater than. Well, and Tom, they go by, it was strictly numbers. Tom is like no Carlos Heel, but strictly done by the Who Scored composite numbers on the season. I mean, it was strictly math. This was a math problem that they pieced together. But Brooks Lennon and Thiago Almada on the Who Scored top 11 right now. I mean, if you're looking, and I mean, Abby, I know that you're thinking that both Julian and Brooks can, but I think Brooks's game is far more three-dimensional, is more dimensional than Julian's is. Julian, in national team duty, does one thing. He tries to attempt to bang in crosses from the right. Brooks can do far more things than just do that. If Julian, and we saw this in the Gold Cup, if Julian tries to cut to the inside, he instantly cannot keep possession. His touches to himself are heavy, and he loses possession a great deal of the time and stifles any kind of offense that they want to try to make. If Julian just stayed on the right wing and was banging in crosses and did nothing else, I mean, the effectiveness depends on the opponent, obviously. But Julian is one-dimensional. One-dimensional. Brooks, to Bart's point, and this is, yeah, Brooks, 4 years younger, can actually play right back. Gressel's ineffective throughout the Gold Cup. He was. It was pretty. It was an ineffective Julian Gressel representing the United States. Absolutely was ineffective. Brooks Lennon, DeAndre Yedlin. So, let's do it this way. Julian Gressel, DeAndre Yedlin, Brooks Lennon. Brooks Lennon. You give me the choice of those three, I'm picking Brooks Lennon each and every time. Brooks Lennon has been out of his mind this year. And I'm hoping that he continues to get, she better be getting more looks. And especially over folks like Julian Gressel. But yeah, Brooks and Thiago Almada make the who scored starting 11 to this point of the season. And Abby, you're right. With Caleb, if Caleb continues to grow, could you imagine in 3 years for the United States, Caleb Wiley on the left, Brooks Lennon somewhere in the discussion on the right. 2 players for Atlanta United right now was a part of the discussion for the men's national team. Caleb Wiley, left back. You keep rolling that through, Caleb Wiley would be tremendous. I'd love to see it. The rest of the tour, by the way, for the Mexican national team, June the 10th at Snapdragon against Cameroon was the first one. Saturday in September 9th, playing Australia in Arlington at Jerry World. Tuesday the 12th is the one against Uzbekistan at Mercedes-Benz. Saturday the 14th against Ghana. They're looking for a location. Tuesday the 17th, 8 o'clock at the Link against Germany. So that's the tour for Mexico. The Utah Royals and the WSL have named former Reading women manager Kelly Chambers sporting director ahead of their 2024 return. Chelsea have bid £70 million for Moises Caicedo. Brighton rejected their latest offer. You can't have him. Wesley Fofana looks like he's going to be on the sidelines for Chelsea for quite a while, as Chelsea's confirming surgery is going to have to be performed. Can MLS take a break so we don't miss so many players? Abby, the problem with that, and I'm going to look at it strictly economically, is the TV revenue. If you're looking at international breaks, it's up to the teams themselves if they want to continue to play games in international windows. And so you see some teams in Major League Soccer opt to play in those international windows. I think that is always going to be there for teams in Major League Soccer to have that option. So you will always have teams playing during the MLS season window, regardless of when that is. I think you'll still have at least one match. Some teams will opt out. So a lot of teams, if they have international presence, they'll opt out in those windows when it comes to schedules and schedule makers. But you will still have, because of the TV contract and because of the revenue on the table, you will not have a week go by unless it is completely and totally uniform. Each and every time that an international window pops up, that you won't have a match. That might have been like 7 negatives, and my mom is probably going to scream at me. League mandated stoppage for some international breaks this season. Yes, mercifully they did. And I'm hoping it becomes something of a normal thing. But there are still some windows where you'll see like one game and you're going, come on. So we'll see what happens there. Gossip, rumor, and innuendo, things left unsaid, and making sure that we get all of our rumors covered. Oh, I forgot to talk about this. Don Garber, when he said that he was not going to be threatened by the growing influence of the Saudi Pro League in the landscape. Quote, I remember where we were that league and everybody was saying, what's happening in America with Major League Soccer? And then what impact did that have on the rest of the world? The rest of the world said, well, it's just the crazy Americans, right? We don't have to worry about them. I'm the co-chair of the World League Forum, and the Saudi League has been a part of the World League Forum. There was just a meeting in London this past week. They're a contributing member of the global professional football community, and their league is going to continue to grow and evolve and figure out how they can achieve what it is they want to achieve for their fans, whatever it is they're looking to achieve with their league overall. I've seen it in this new paragraph. I've seen it happen in China, with China, and I wasn't concerned about that any more than I'm concerned about what's happening in Saudi Arabia. It's quite the opposite. The fact that we can spread the power and influence of professional football around the world, I think, gives us all or in emerging markets an opportunity to think that it's not just about Europe, right? Garber also highlighted the efforts within CONCACAF to grow its professional footprint. MLS has expanded significantly, launching Leagues Cup. CONCACAF has made an effort to expand and grow its own regional tournament. Think of what CONCACAF's been able to achieve over the last number of years. I live here. I'm a member of the U.S. Soccer Board of Directors for over 20 years. I want to see our federation be stronger. I want to see our confederation be stronger. And I'm sure that other people like me around the world who have several similar goals and objectives. So I'm not threatened by that at all. Just one more thing in this really complicated business that we're in. We'll manage through it, and I think we're going to be just fine. I know a lot of folks are comparing the Saudi League to what we saw with the Chinese Pro League. The Chinese Pro League did not have as much influence from the government, whereas the Saudi League has the PIF. And the PIF right now, with those 4 teams that they are, currently managing, hoping that folks will sit there and take over majority ownership over time. But right now, the Saudi government and the PIF feel that this is what they need to do to get on the map, especially with their Vision 2030 project. If they can continue to bring in all of these ambassadors, and I'll use that word, like CR38, then what you're staring at is they're going to spend the money, and I don't think they care. The PIF and the Saudi government, they're going to spend money on those 4 teams to try to get this boost, this, if you want to call it an artificial economic boost for those 4 clubs and the league, to get it noticed, to get the exposure in line for Vision 2030. And my gut tells me that Vision 2030 will include the World Championships. It will include the World Cup. They will have a boatload of competitions. And I think that the 2030 World Cup will go to Saudi Arabia as a part of this. But that's just me. Tom says, but doesn't the Chinese government inherently have control because state companies being partial owners of the CSL clubs? Yeah. But this one is more, it was this one for me, and Tom that says that's how I feel the CSL and the Saudi League are similar. You had businesses that were under the watchful eye of the Chinese government, but they would still try to spend. It would be the businesses themselves, the owners themselves, whereas it is the government itself in Saudi Arabia. And like I said, this is how I'm looking at it. You have the government and the public investment fund, both arms of the government, with those 4 clubs giving this artificial economic boost to the Saudi Pro League as we see it. In the Chinese Super League, it was the government with state companies being partial owners, but they're partial owners. And then the spending gets out of hand where it's not 100% ownership and control. And it was where those owners could not continue to handle the spending habits that they had created. I think the Saudis and the Qataris, UAE, all of that, I think they can handle the spending and not worry about it. Whereas China and the Super League was not entirely state-controlled. It was partially state-controlled, not entirely state-controlled. What you're seeing from Saudi Arabia is government and PIF, which is the subsidiary, and you get into all the fine print and all that kind of stuff. That's why I think it's a little different. And I don't think that the Saudis are going to blink twice about it. China did. Chinese Super League is nowhere on the map anymore. Tom, getting into schedules. Would love for MLS to switch schedules, but just wouldn't work playing in winter. Yeah, absolutely true. Unless you did some radical stuff like put Minnesota, Colorado et al. On the road for months at a time or build them all domes. Well, they could play at U.S. Bank. Minnesota could play at U.S. Bank anyway. So you're looking at all that stuff. All right, gossip, rumor, and innuendo. Sorry, I went off on a tangent. I know that shocked you. All right, here's your gossip for the morning. Harry Kane does not want to join PSG this summer. Open to a move for Bayern Munich. Would reject any approach from the French champs. They could make a move for Ivan Toney, who is serving a ban. Remember, Brentford is right now chasing Brennan Johnson for Nottingham Forest. So if Kane leaves, Spurs could chase after Ivan Toney, even though he is banned until first of the year. PSG president Nasser Al-Khelaifi will come face-to-face with Kylian Mbappe for the first time since the 24-year-old sent a letter to the club saying he would not be extending his deal with them beyond the end of next season. Love to be a fly on the wall for that one. Chelsea's going to make the improved bid of more than 70 for Moises Caicedo. Already having agreed to personal terms. We'll see if the transfer terms are met. Marcus Rashford set to sign a new contract with Manchester United running until 28, worth £325,000 a week. Top 5 contract in the league. Manchester United ready to step up their interest in Atalanta's striker Rasmus Højlund. West Ham have had a £45 million bid for João Palhinha rejected by Fulham. Manchester United knocked back an offer for West Ham to try and sign Harry Maguire on loan. Remember, Maguire posted to his Instagram he's no longer captain at Manchester United. West Ham have joined United in looking at Bayern's midfielder Leon Goretzka. Inter Milan expected to bid about £34.33 million for Folarin Balogun as they explore a deal for Balogun, who Arsenal values at 50. Johnny Evans has now signed a short-term deal to join Manchester United 8 years after leaving. So we'll keep an eye on that. Brighton leading Burnley and Manchester City in the race to bring in Cole Palmer on loan for Manchester City. Riyad Mahrez looks like he is out the door and heading to Saudi Arabia as well. Brighton set to beat Fulham to the signing of Fiorentina's Brazilian defender Igor. Burnley and Leicester, along with Sheffield United, keen on a loan deal for Manchester United winger Amad Diallo. 4-letter paper. Take the information at your own peril. Wolves in talks to sign Swiss international defender Nico Elvedi from Borussia Mönchengladbach. Leeds, who are now fully owned by the San Francisco 49ers, by the way. That was approved. Have agreed a deal with Chelsea to sign Welsh defender Ethan Ampadu for $7 million plus add-ons. These are all in pounds figures, unless otherwise notified. Al Nassr is going to chase after Moussa Diaby as well as Aston Villa. 4-letter paper. Nottingham Forest opened talks with Manchester United over a permanent deal for Dean Henderson. I think the number there is $30 million. Watford interested in signing English defender Jamal Lewis on loan from Newcastle. 4-letter paper. West Ham's Mikel Antonio has held preliminary talks with Al Ettifaq. Remember, Al Ettifaq is where Steven Gerrard is. So we'll keep an eye on all of that. They signed Rashford, and keep an eye on Johnny Evans. Tom Cato says it sounds like a registration rule signing. And remember, Abby, keep an eye on Andre Onana. It looks like that one might have been settled as well. I think £40 million, I think, was the number that they were looking at as the replacement for David De Gea. So keep an eye on that one as well. This is a really cool piece of news. BT Sport has been rebranded. They've been bought by Warner Brothers Discovery, and so they are going to be now TNT Sports. Laura Woods is going to be the lead presenter for Champions League as TNT Sports enters the British and Irish market and replacing BT. Lindsay Hipgrave will continue to present weekend Premier League coverage. Resman Chowdhury is going to anchor Champions League matches. Jules Breach will head up Europa League coverage, acting as the touchline reporter, as The Guardian says. In a team that bears close relation to the outgoing BT regime, few big-name casualties. TNT's major football co-commentator edition is Ali McCoist. But looks like most of them are locked in. The channel brings in Orla Chenawi from Eurosport and their Tour de France coverage. The Goal Show is going to be there, but new female-fronted presentation team. All four. Boom, 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 boom. Very cool stuff from TNT Sports over in England that you've got. All of your your new female-fronted presentation team from TNT Sports. Very, very cool stuff there. Remember, we talked about Forest Green Rovers and Hannah Dingley. It looks like her term as caretaker manager at Forest Green Rovers is only going to be for 13 days in League Two. She's going to go back to being academy manager. The club appointed Southampton B team manager Dave Horseman as their new coach. A lot of folks are now saying to Dale Vince, the owner at Forest Green Rovers, that all this was a publicity stunt, and they're disappointed that Dingley may or may not have gotten a fair shake. So keep an eye on that when it comes to Hannah Dingley. Also, FIFA and UEFA are being urged to exclude Russia over Crimean clubs from Nick Ames at The Guardian. Under pressure to extend sanctions on the Russian Football Federation, including the possibility of expulsion from governing bodies, after 2 Crimean clubs were incorporated into the pyramid and allowed to start the country's season last Sunday. Rubin Yalta and FC Sevastopol played their first matches in the Russian Football National League, the 4th tier, despite rules that prohibit Crimean clubs from playing in competitions organized by the Russian Football Union. Crimea has been considered a special zone by UEFA since Russia annexed the region in 2014. So Rubin and Sevastopol have seemingly breached the edict. The Ukrainian Association of Football has asked the governing bodies to consider ejecting Russia from their membership, referring to a gross violation of FIFA and UEFA statutes and UEFA's decision on the special status of Crimean football. So keep an eye on that. That was also in The Guardian this month. RFS General Secretary told local media that the Football National League was not run under his organization's auspices, and after a reformulation of Russia's lower divisions ahead of this season was an amateur competition. Sources spoken to by The Guardian, including current players, have contested the latter assertion, while the league is listed on the RFS's website and is a functioning part of the pyramid. So UEFA and FIFA have yet to comment on that, so keep an eye on that as well. We mentioned if you're looking for big previews for the Guardian's got previews of all the teams that are going to be a part of the Women's World Cup, and very, very cool stuff from them across the board. Getting into the papers, the Onana deal is worth a potential £47.2 million, Abby. So there's your replacement, €55 million. Transfer center, the $70 million bid was rejected. Bayern is saying that if Kane keeps his word, we will get him. Harry Maguire is considering his options. Inter is switching their focus from Lukaku to Balogun. We mentioned the Balogun numbers. Declan Rice has now been seen with the jersey being held up. Johnny Evans, defender, more on that, been training with the U21s following his departure from Leicester City at the end of last season. 198 appearances for Manchester United before leaving in 2015. So looking at that. Fabinho's £40 million transfer to Al Ittihad from Liverpool progressing well, expected to get completed. 29-year-old looks to end a 5-year stay at Anfield. Former Leeds and Everton keeper Joel Robles has signed with the second division side in Saudi Arabia, Al Qadisiyah, managed by Robbie Fowler. Swansea reached an agreement with Coventry over compensation for Joel Adebodiere. And Burnley progressing in talks to sign Basel forward Zeki Amdouni, in advanced talks to sign Nathan Redmond on a free. Spurs have set their price for Giovanni Lo Celso, according to the Times, They're looking for £23 million, having turned down Napoli on a loan move. Al Nassr in talks with Manchester United over the signing of defender Alex Telles. Discussion centers around a fee. We mentioned Mikel Antonio. The Athletic claims Chelsea and Marseille are in talks on a potential move for Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. So we'll look at all of that stuff as well. What to watch today? Before we go, what's on TV? Let's see what's on TV. All-Stars Challenge, Skills Challenge tonight. All-Stars and Arsenal, 8 o'clock on Season Pass. Root for your next pro keepers in Goalie Wars. BN and BN and Espanol have Copa Sudamericana at 6 and 8. America, Mineiro, and Colo Colo, followed by Estudiantes in Barcelona. 1:30, you've got a friendly if you're really looking for stuff on the tube. Villarreal and SC Rheindorf-Altach. Also on the plus, League One tonight at Regal Soccer Stadium, 1 Knox in Union, Omaha. Nextpro.com, Colorado Rapids 2, and a friendly against Hoffenheim at 10p. Paramount Plus has the Brasileiro at 7 with Palmeiras. Champions League qualifying underway. Struga and Zalgiris. Maccabi Haifa and Hamrun Spartans is at 1, and the Scottish League Cup, Dundee United and Partick Thistles at 2:45. That's your Tuesday. Yeah, and Abby thinks the Saudi League is just a fad. Yes, and that was why, Abby, when I was discussing the story about Ukraine, any Ukrainian story involving the Ukrainian leagues and all that stuff, I'm going to mention it. That was why when I mentioned the word annexed, I had that little bit of added to it. We'll be back at it again tomorrow. It'll be normal time, 9:05. Hoping Dylan Butler joins us at 10. And Bart Keeler will be joining us tomorrow is Wednesday. Bart Keeler joining us at 10:30 for his view on the WNT, on what's happening at Wild Heaven on Friday, reffing down here if there's anything he wants to discuss coming up at 10:30, and we will go from there. Thanks to Luke Winstel, and it's going to be fun getting Luke's updates. And like I said, he's got golden ticket status. It's group stage in the World Cup. Anytime he wants to hop in at 9:05, he'll hop in at 9:05, and we'll discuss what's going on and get World Cup updates from Luke from Brisbane during the group stage. Very, very cool stuff with our friends at the University of Georgia. And because it is the end of the show, I get to say mucha platiel, play it safe. It's the end, and so that means I get to do this. We'll be back at it again 9:05 tomorrow morning. Take a breath. Mucha platiel. Lionel Messi is not practicing at the moment.